Escondido cop charged with killing a man on his e-bike was in court today. I have more from his grieving family.
Text messages about witchcraft, divorce, and moving dead bodies will take you back to the Millette murder trial for more emotional testimony.
An update tonight on a pipeline break in Mexico that dumped tens of millions of gallons of sewage into our local waterways. The problem has been fixed, but frustration remains.
Santee's Patriotic Porch Contest returns. We'll show you what's decked out in red, white, and blue.
We begin tonight with new numbers from Tuesday's primary election. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
I'm Marcella Lee. Those updated results dropped just about 45 minutes ago. In the race for governor, with about 59% of precincts reporting, Republican Steve Hilton is maintaining his lead here among San Diegans with about 27% of the vote. This is again the San Diego County numbers.
No, these are statewide results. Yes,
okay.
These are the statewide results.
Of the vote statewide, Democrat Javier Becerra remains in second with nearly 26% of the vote, followed by Tom Steyer with a little more than 20%.
Again, these are state results at first. In the race for the 48th congressional seat with about 54% of precincts reporting, Republican Jim Desmond is holding a steady lead with 41% of the vote. He's likely to face Democrat Marnie Von Wilpert in November. In fact, AP has called that race, those two moving on. She has a little more than 20% of the vote.
And now to our local numbers. In the city of San Diego, voters appear opposed to saying no to Measure A that would have taxed homes that were left unoccupied for more than half a year, essentially second homes. Looks like that measure is failing with 57% of voters casting a no ballot. You can find results on other races on our website, cbs8.com. Tonight, the Registrar of Voters says there are about 275,000 ballots still left to be counted. Its next update will be by 6 o'clock tomorrow night.
As ballot counting continues, the big question remains which two of the three leading candidates for governor will be advancing to the November runoff. News 8 State Matters political reporter Jenny Hudd talked to an election data expert to break down the early results.
I know that we can do it.
The underdog stayed in the fight.
And we know we finished really strong.
It remains to be seen which two candidates will battle it out in November to be the next governor of California. As early results stand Thursday, Trump-endorsed Republican Steve Hilton remains in the lead, followed by Democrats Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer.
I don't think that it has any meaning whether one finishes above the other in a primary like this. This is a race where Steve Hilton really had one opponent, and that was Chad Bianco, whereas Javier Becerra had 5 opponents, the major Democratic candidates in the race with him.
The million-dollar question, will it be Hilton and Becerra or Becerra and Steyer? Election data expert Paul Mitchell says for Steyer to move up from third place, a lot needs to happen. There's a 6-point gap between Steyer and second place Becerra.
He not only needs to make up that 6-point gap, but he also has to have another 6 points to make up for all the ballots that have already been tabulated.
Mitchell says when the next batch of results drops Friday evening, there will be a clearer picture of the November face-off. That's because more of the later ballots will have been counted, and a lot of those later ballots were cast by hesitant Democrats who were holding on to their ballots until the last minute.
A lot of these voters who traditionally vote early, older Democrats that vote in every election that hadn't turned in their ballots yet. They would say, I don't want to make a mistake in the governor's race.
And that is what will dictate the future for Democrats, Mitchell says. On Election Day, we spoke to both the Becerra and Steyer campaigns on how split Democrats seem to be.
You never know what to expect in a campaign cycle, and don't count anybody out.
Look, I think this race has seemed really complicated, and I'm sure everybody was very confused for a long time. There's 60 people on the ballot, for goodness sakes. But I think it's become a very simple race.
Also top of mind this primary, Proposition 50, the temporary redrawing of California's congressional districts to give Democrats a 5-seat advantage. A counter to Texas's mid-decade redistricting to give Republicans a 5-seat advantage. Mitchell was the map drawer and says Prop 50 success is still up in the air.
Voters have to vote, campaigns have to campaign, and the map drawer doesn't have anything beyond their one single vote in their one single congressional district anymore.
What wasn't on his bingo card was Congressman Kevin Kiley, who just switched party affiliation from Republican to Independent, running in the redrawn 6th congressional district. Early results show Kiley and a little-known Republican candidate in the top 2.
Basically, he's a -1 from the redistricting plan passed by Prop 50. Kevin Kiley decided he didn't like my maps. And so he moved to a different district and is running.
Jenny Ha, News 8.
And it remains to be seen how Californians' votes will play out in the national picture over the battle for control of Congress in the 2026 midterms. Stay with News 8 for the very latest primary election updates as far as our local races are concerned and our statewide races. You can get all the updates on CBS8.com or by streaming our free CBS 8 app on both your phone and on your TV.
An Escondido police officer accused of running over and killing a man on an electric bike during a police chase faced a judge for the first time today.
That officer entered a not guilty plea. News 8's Alex Cheney joins us live after speaking with the victim's family, who tells us that they're still fighting for answers. Alex?
Yeah, Marcella, that deadly crash happened right here at the Escondido Creek Trail just about a year ago. That police officer chased the man with his patrol car on the bike path here, which usually doesn't take cars, and that's when that fatal crash occurred. His family was in the courtroom today as they demand answers.
Mr. Inco pleads not guilty to any and all allegations.
In Vista Court, 36-year-old Escondido police officer Jason Inco pleaded not guilty to one count of misdemeanor gross vehicular manslaughter in the death of 39-year-old Jacob Ilian.
Yes, Your Honor.
If convicted, he could face up to 1 year in jail. Prosecutors say the incident happened on August 21st, 2025. They say Inco started a pursuit of Ilian on a bike path near Valley Parkway and Rose Street in Escondido.
We know at some point during the course of that pursuit, a collision did occur.
The DA says the charge is a misdemeanor instead of a felony because he says there was no gross negligence.
The misdemeanor aligned with the evidence, and therefore we charged the misdemeanor in the case.
Prosecutors say Inco's patrol car hit Ilian. Ilian died at the scene from a head injury.
We greatly appreciate the fact that this officer, like any citizen, is going to be held accountable for his criminal actions.
Outside the courthouse, Ilian's family told me they still don't know why police tried to stop him in the first place.
There was no crime being committed. There was no allegation that there was any type of probable cause to initiate a stop.
The mother of Ilian's children also spoke.
Love at first sight. We fell in love with each other.
She says they spent 15 years together. Their two daughters, now 13 and 7, lost their father.
And he was always there, and they just knew him as the best dad in the world.
She says Ilian lived with paralysis on the left side of his body after an accidental shooting. Because of that, she doesn't believe he was trying to flee from police.
Well, he couldn't really run. He wasn't doing that. He wasn't running from the police.
The family says it plans to file a federal civil lawsuit. I spoke to the Escondido Police Department earlier today. They said that Officer Inco is on administrative leave as the legal process plays out, and his next court appearance will be for a jury trial at the end of September. Reporting live, I'm Alex Cheney. Back over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Maya Millette's sister-in-law was back on the stand today on day 11 of Larry Millette's murder trial. Larry's wife, Maya, disappeared in January of 2021. 10 months later, he was arrested and has been in custody ever since.
No cameras are being allowed in the courtroom during this trial. News 8's Jenny Day reports from the South Bay Courthouse with the testimony heard in court today.
To give you some context, Maya had moved in with her brother and this sister-in-law, Genesis Tabalanza, who is testifying, about 7 months before Maya disappeared. She stayed with them for a few weeks, saying she just needed some space from Larry. She then moved back in with Larry the day that he confronted her about having an affair.
The Millette murder trial continued Thursday with a picture of this white truck. Maya's sister-in-law saying Larry had tracked Maya's location by hiding their daughter's phone in her car, and that's when he discovered Maya was having an affair, finding her with a man she worked with in this truck in June of 2020. Prosecutors allege Maya was killed in January of 2021. Here's what the sister-in-law had to say during the preliminary hearing and again today.
He asked Jamie, "What are you doing here in this vehicle with my wife?" And then May just looked surprised and started crying.
Genesis testified Larry talked to her about reporting the affair to the Navy, their employer, so that Maya is fired and he gets custody of the kids. Several other text messages were shown in court between Genesis and Larry, emphasizing his growing desperation to save his marriage. He frequently writes, "I'm panicking Maya's going to leave." She tries to comfort him. Then Larry responds, "Real friends help you move dead bodies." Genesis said in court Maya then came to her, looked her in the eye, and said, "Stop answering Larry's calls." Again, here is her previous testimony.
This is it. I'm going to file for divorce. And if something happens to me, it would be Larry.
Jurors also craned their necks to see this photo as Genesis went on to say she tried to steer Larry away from spellcasters and witchcraft. A text from him saying, "If they can help, I'm willing to sell my soul." The defense's argument is really just that Larry loved her, he didn't want her dead, and he was willing to do anything to save their marriage.
There are even texts from Larry saying he would rather share Maya than be apart. Now, they also got back into this poisonous plant that Larry had asked Genesis about, hemlock, that apparently is deadly but not detectable. Genesis testified that she all along thought it was for Larry himself because he was depressed, and certainly not ever for Maya. Court resumes on Monday. In Chula Vista, Jenny Day, News 8.
Thank you, Jenny. And you can watch our coverage of the Millette case by downloading the free CBS 8 app on your phone or TV and stream it anytime.
Tonight, we have an update on a massive sewage spill at the border. Mexico says emergency repairs to the Tijuana line are now complete, but a strong odor may still linger across the South Bay.
News 8's Shannon Handy reports from Imperial Beach, where the stench is finally starting to lift, but the frustration is only growing.
Thankfully, the smell has subsided a lot, but the reality is this particular spill dumped tens of millions of gallons of sewage into our local waterways. People who live around here are, of course, happy it's been fixed, but they're frustrated it keeps happening.
Frustrated with having a beautiful beach that we can't use, frustrated with having to run air purifiers all the time just to make it not smell like rotten eggs and sewage.
For people living in San Diego's South Bay, the smell of sewage is nothing new, but this week it's been especially overwhelming.
Specifically 2 nights ago, it was really strong.
Over the weekend, Tijuana's parallel gravity line ruptured, sending millions of gallons of sewage into the U.S.
Basically, half of the sewer in Tijuana started spilling into the Tijuana River. That's about 40 to 50 million gallons of sewage.
Chris Helmer is the Environmental and Natural Resources Director of Imperial Beach. He says the spill pushed hydrogen sulfide levels higher in communities near the Tijuana River Valley, creating that strong rotten egg smell. Weather conditions only made it worse.
Right now, we have the south wind, and you actually have the south swells, which means the current's coming out from the border and going north. All that flow coming up, instead of being pushed south back to Mexico, it's going all the way straight up along our coast.
The county's public health office issued a warning urging people who live, work, or go to school nearby to monitor air quality and limit exposure. At some schools, kids weren't allowed outside. Today, repairs to the broken line were completed, but Helmer says this won't be the last time.
We're going to continue to see breaks in these systems because every part of their 3/4 is extremely vulnerable. And if we're going to be having a very busy winter this year with the upcoming El Nino, then we're likely going to be seeing some even more infrastructure damage.
Just yesterday, Helmer joined Imperial Beach's mayor and other local leaders on a call with the governor's office requesting a state of emergency. That request was denied, but he says there is long-term progress. Plans are underway to expand the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant, along with renewed agreements with Mexico to speed up repairs and increase investment in keeping our water clean.
It would be nice that they would just finally, clean it up.
Shanna Handy, News 8.
At least there's good news that the repairs are done. And
for now, but we need some real permanent solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, crews are making progress against the fire burning along the border.
We're going to have an update on that still ahead. Plus, a look at what's being done to ensure that fans are safe during the upcoming World Cup.
And the La Jolla estate, once owned by the late Dr. Seuss, is getting a new owner. Still ahead, the whimsically large amount of historic property, how much it's sold for.
All right, in that forecast, we are looking at some cloud cover starting to roll right back in. Marine layer on repeat. It's still going to be rather shallow, meaning right there along the coast and near the coast, along the coast. But inland, you're going to see a lot more of that morning cloud cover in the days ahead. I'll explain why coming up.